ever noticed that at all the comics, movies, TV series that we watch, a little imposed on us the image of superheroes? For example, Batman is a rich dude who drives around Gotham in a Batmobile, catches criminals, puts a brand on them and sends the villains to prison, where they will meet a terrible fate. Or Captain America, a lab rat who was pumped up by an experiment, then was frozen for many years. I'm already silent about the Hulk, the Green Beast, Flash, or Wolverine. What if we look at our world with more real eyes? I will share with you a secret. My mother is a superhero. Every day she did something unreal, which is what we admired. The thing is, the three of us have been living together for a very long time, and we don't have a father. Him and my mom are divorced, so she's raising us alone. In truth, we didn't really need a father, because Supermom managed to replace him. She managed to work hard, but at the same time, spend every free minute with us. My little brother and I remembered her as a supermom because she always came to our aid like a real superhero. She had a lot of different abilities, such as heat resistance. I remember from my childhood, as we sat three, me, my mother, my brother, and drank tea. All of a sudden, my little brother gets off the chair and starts freaking out. He tried to approach me and hit the tablecloth, and everything on the table, including the hot kettle, fell in his direction. Just in a second, my mother caught the teapot with her bare hands and put it back on the table. Not a single drop spilled. Imagine! But the most amazing thing is that she did not even pay attention to the burn. The first thing she noticed was us. She asked if we were all right, no one was hurt, and then looked at her reddened hand. She also had the gift of speed, like Flash. The three of us were walking down the street. My mother had heavy bags in her hands, and my brother and I took it easy. Samuel ran out into the road, saw $1 lying there, and wanted to pick it up. But I didn't see a car coming around the corner at high speed. I was dumbfounded from fright, mentally realizing that it was impossible to reach him. We would not have time. At that moment, our mother flew and pulled him by the sleeve to her, and they both fell to the sidewalk. I ran up to them all scared, and my mother looked so collected. I turned around and saw our groceries lying on the road. Samuel felt guilty and didn't say anything other than, "Sorry, Mom, I won't do it again." Our mom was as strong as Superman. I remember when I was younger, I used to run and play on the roof of the house. I thought it was the best place to see the sunset, but I didn't think that by carelessness, the sunset could put an end to my life. Once, when my mother was at work, I decided to fly a kite. It caught on the pipe on the roof, and I climbed to untangle the knots. I lost my balance and was already falling down with a scream. Suddenly, I felt a soft landing. It turns out that my mother left work early because she suddenly felt ill. She saw me on the roof and wanted to yell for me to come down, but she was afraid to scare me off. In the end, when I was falling, she managed to catch me. But her most important gift was to animate people. I remember when I was my brother's age. My father lived with us then. My dad and I were sitting at home alone, and he bought me a pizza and we ate it. And my mom said she was going to be late at work. My dad was very nervous at the time. He was jealous. I don't think he believed she was working. It was raining really hard that night. He took me by the hand, somehow dressed me warmly, put me in the car, and we went to her work. Dad looked very angry. He answered my questions dryly, or yelled, and I was so hungry that I took a half-eaten slice of pizza with me and took small bites all the way. We arrived at the place. My dad pulled me out of the car, approached a woman, and called my mother's name. She told us to sit down and wait for a bit. Then I saw her in the corridor. My mother came out with a smile on her face and was very surprised. She came up to us and asked what we were doing here, but Dad just blurted out, "To check if you're lying to us." My mother smiled, patted his face, and said, "Howard, please, not here. You can see I'm working. Drive home." Then she leaned in, kissed me, and took a bite of pizza. Suddenly, there was a noise. People ran into the corridor. They were carrying someone on gurneys. There were adults and children. All of them were bleeding, but unconscious, like a sleeping princess, lay the woman, the mother. It was a family that got into a terrible accident that night because of the rain. They were all crying, and the man was in shock. Dad and I leaned against the wall and watched. Mom screamed that the intensive care unit was busy, ran to the woman, cut her clothes, and began to examine something inside her. Then she said in a commanding tone to bring her some necessary things, and I didn't quite understand what they were. That woman was unconscious, and there was a lot of blood. My mother did something to her. She stood there for a long time, working with her gloves on, then picked up the thing with the wires, rubbed them together, and touched the unconscious lady. She was shouting, 1, 2, 3, discharge! This happened several times. The woman with her eyes closed was climbing up from the stretcher and falling down again. Then she opened her eyes and started coughing. Her family screamed with joy. Others clapped for my mother, and she stood there, not even paying attention to the applause, peering at the lady, asking questions, and only then, when she got the answers, did she exhale. Yes, my mother is a doctor. She has fought death many times and literally pulled her patients out of its clutches. My mother fought to the last, until she was sure that there was no chance at all. Her work was noble, but it took up almost all the time. When my little brother was born, my dad seemed to be jealous of us and of her work. He couldn't stand it and left, and my mother didn't stop him, just wished him luck. Since then, the three of us have been living together. Sometimes, my brother and I go to the hospital to see my mother, to see how she works. It inspires us to do great things. We play a game of who will save who, although most often we get it on the head for carelessness from my mother. But still, in our eyes, she is a superhero, and even more abruptly than any Superman and Wonder Woman.